All right, guys. So first of all, for those that don't know me, I see a lot of familiar faces. I see some faces I don't know. I am Brandon. I'm the one who's been sending all the emails. I'm the Little League president. So first thing I always like to do with these things is thank you guys for coming out, for volunteering, for being coaches. It's such a huge thing. I know you guys are sacrificing your time. It's a very low paying job to do what you're doing. But we wouldn't be able to run our league without that. We rely on volunteer coaches. We're not a travel club that's, paying coaches, giving stipends, things like that. It takes volunteers, people like yourselves, to run this league. So this was one of the first years that I didn't have to send a whole lot of emails looking for coaches. There were a couple little spots where we filled in some gaps, and that came pretty quick. So it was honestly one of the least stressful years I've had to go through with getting coaches. I would still love more. I mean, our goal is always to get 3 per team, which would be great. But back when I started, it was stressful to get 2 per team. So it's really awesome to see this grow and to see a lot of people come back and want to keep doing this. So again, thank you for coming out here and volunteering your time. So with that, first up, I'm going to kick it to Brett, who's going to say a few things to get us started.
Everybody, if you don't have this document, there's 2 documents over there. Please grab it really quick. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for coaching. As Brandon said, I'd be remiss if I don't mention Kelly Koss. You may have seen the announcement recently. Kelly is retiring in June. Kelly's been here for 25 years as the youth sports coordinator. And those of you who've been in Zeeland for a long time know how much the program has grown under her leadership. 25 years of anything is a really long time. So some of you may have actually played sports as a kid with Kelly as a director of but I would just like to say thank you, Kelly. Let's give her a round of applause. My goal is to, as quickly as possible, just highlight some of the main expectations that we have for volunteer coaches. Those of you that coached us before have heard this speech. Those of you who have not coached us before have not heard this speech, but it's very important that we enter into practices and games all on the same page about what we're trying to accomplish, to make sure that we protect the environment for every kid. That's what I'm going to talk about for the next few minutes. So if you can follow along, I'm going to go through this document here. Take this home, put it in a folder that you have throughout the season. So if you're ever wondering about what is specifically required of me when it comes to the big picture expectations, this is it right here. So we have 3 primary goals as a youth sports program. First is building character. So things like being a good teammate, competitiveness, learning how to win and lose, treatment of opponents and umps, handling adversity, learning from mistakes, all the things that you want your kids to learn besides the skill of baseball or softball. Those are the things that we want to accomplish this year, and you'll be the one that they will look to determine that. You've all probably played sports in your life and know how important a coach is and was to you as a kid. Every word you choose to use, every reaction you have to an umpire, every reaction you have to an opposing coach, they are paying attention. And if we don't do those things right, it doesn't matter what we do right on the baseball or softball side. We're trying to develop kids of character that will develop this community as adults too. So that is primarily goal number 1. That trumps everything else. If you do that wrong, nothing else matters. Number 2 is having fun. Yes, that's a cliche. If you talk to the coaches, they want more kids at their 9th grade tryouts, especially if you talk to baseball and softball coaches. They want more kids at their 9th grade tryouts. One of the best ways we can do that is have them want to play baseball or softball next season. And you guys will play a large role in that, of making sure even the worst kid and even the best kid and everyone in between has a positive experience this year, by making sure they have fun. There's small ways to do that. Not a lot of it has to do with necessarily on the field coaching, but team parties, putting an arm around a kid who's going to strike out. Things like that are a big deal. So make sure you emphasize that with your team and having fun. Third is, we're not about participation trophies here. We're trying to develop championship level baseball and softball at East and West or whatever schools these good kids go to. So we want to build character, we want to have fun. We also want these kids how to compete, how to develop their skills at a high level to help East and West win championships down the line. So please know that big deal. And every time you allow poor fundamentals to go without coaching that or correcting that, you're not helping that. Make sure every tiny detail you correct the coach as best you can throughout this season, so that when they get to the higher levels, those coaches can focus on higher development things because you've taught those things at the lower level. So those are the 3 things. There's 8 mandatory standards for you that are not negotiable that you have to follow in order to be a coach. Violate those things, those processes we go to. We almost never have to do that. You guys do a great job. But I want to be clear that those 8 things listed there are things that are not negotiable. So first and foremost, we already talked about this, about being a role model. So if you this way to be removed as a coach is to yell at an opposing official, to put your hands on a kid, to cuss at somebody, and everything else in between that you can think of that clearly violates the guideline of being a role model for developing character. So please make sure you understand that that is primary goal number 1. Second, you're going to have a draft, and sometimes you guys a fantasy football draft where you put like 20 hours into this thing. All of that's fine. But what we'll make sure is emphasizing that the goal of the draft, the reason we do team formation that way, is we're trying to avoid the horrible teams. Because if there's a kid or kids that's losing every game by a lot of runs, or just simply losing every game, chances of them wanting to play next year goes down. We're trying to eliminate that as best we can. So if you go into that draft with the mindset of, I'm trying to make sure everyone in this room gets as evenly skilled teams as we possibly can. Never going to be perfect, but we have some systems in place that will help. That should be the mindset of every coach, as opposed to you and your assistant coach trying to put an all-star team together through, manipulating score ratings or player ratings, or having a side agreement with the 10 dads in your neighborhood who are the best kids in the league to get on your team. Those are the things we're trying to avoid, right? Because we don't want to have your team beat another 20-0. If that happens, we did something wrong in this process. That's what we're trying to avoid. So please go into that draft with that mindset of, it's not just about my team, but every team in this room, making sure that we're as evenly skilled as we can. So we have a whole bunch of fun, competitive games, close games throughout the season. Okay. Winning should not be. I'm going to talk about 2 things that will have a primary thing you should avoid. Make sure that that's so. First and foremost, equal playing time. Except for those of you that are coaching our new middle school league, and those of you that are coaching majors in the D9, everyone else is coaching Zeeland versus Zeeland the whole season. So the good news is everyone else that we're playing will be following this model as well. Those of you that are in the middle school league, we can't guarantee that those that we're playing against are going to have that same model. Probably most will, but we can't guarantee that. So just know that if you're doing things to give all your team equal playing time, and the opposing team isn't, and you lose because of that, we're okay with that, because there are reasons that we have those models in place. So to be really clear, you need to do everything you possibly can. Make sure every kid plays the exact same amount, close to possible. There's not any, that's an uneven number, so it's difficult. But do your best throughout the season. Make sure every kid plays the same. That's the worst kid, that's the best kid. Okay? We tell parents this too, so you will find out quickly if you're not doing that. We'll let you know. Okay? As they should. Next is multiple positions. Baseball is a little bit unique in this because there's positions that are clearly highlighted in catching and pitching. Some kids just want nothing to do with, right? So Brandon will go into detail later about our specific guidelines for those 2 positions, how we handle playing time. But we want everyone else to learn every single position that they possibly can. Because we're trying to get these kids to the freshman level, not saying, well, I'm a third baseman. Because their coach could switch them in 5-minute conversation. So you put them at third base the whole year this year is not doing them a service. We need to teach them as many positions as possible. So you'll need to map just the playing time. You'll need to map all this stuff out. Make sure you're organized throughout the season of how many games has this kid played third? How many times has this kid played first and catcher and outfield? Make sure you're clear on those things and have some type of system to track those things throughout the year. Make sure that every kid plays all those positions as equally as possible to avoid that problem. And then when it comes to pitching and catching, there's going to be a lot of kids who say to you, like, I don't want anything to do with that. First, don't accept that at face value. There are certain kids that we want to challenge in that and say, I think you can do this. put them in that position and walk through it with them if they have just a massive failure. Catching's a little bit different because there's a little bit of a safety issue there when it comes to a ball flying at them all day. But at the same time, we want to challenge kids in that position too to make sure they're comfortable or that they're talented. So kids that are like fringe, maybe you're not sure, those are the things you should be working out with practice with those kids and putting them in positions to be successful and working on their skills in practice to eventually build up to, hey, we're going to put you in a game in 2 weeks because we're working on it right now in practice. Okay? So don't just say, oh, who wants to be a pitcher first day? Those that raise their hand. Don't accept that. Don't challenge them throughout the season. Okay? Practice guidelines. So before games start, we're in a good spot right now. A lot of years from now, we can see grass right now. That's a really good sign that outdoor practices hopefully will actually start on time. See what happens. But I feel good about our chances of that happening. Before games start, you can do 2 practices in a week and 2 touch points. We'll go to the 8 to 14-year-old practice. We don't want more than 2 touch points in a week before games start. These are little kids. You don't need to be at practice 5 times a week at this level. Okay? 2 practice max until game starts. After games start, you're typically going to have about 2 games a week. And if you can, obviously, get in 1 practice a week as well. We'll make sure we try to get a practice in a week as well. So that's about 3 touch points in a week, and that's maximum. You can not do more than 3 touch points in a week with your kids because it's just too much for kids. Those of you that have multiple kids, you know how difficult little kids to manage all these schedules of you got 3 kids and all 3 of them have 3 touch points in a week. You're at baseball and softball literally every night. I'm doing something. That's enough. If we allow coaches to go beyond that, parents would be like, I can't do this. This is crazy. And they already say that because it's black. Okay? And just to clarify, we rarely have an issue with this. No Sunday contact, no Sunday practices, no Sunday team parties. Just Sundays is off. Give the kids a time to just hang out. Practice location, just to be clear, you can only practice at ZLL Coaches Meeting. No, you cannot practice there. Or the free place that has the back. No, you cannot practice there. Practice at only the sites that Brandon clarifies that you can actually practice. Last but not least, I should clarify, we have a 2-step process. Let's say you're someone that violates these things. We have a 2-step process for removal. Please know we do not want to remove you. We need you for the season. But we do have a process. If you violate one of these things, you're yelling at it up and we hear about that. Brandon or Kelly will be giving you a call and hey, this is our first and last conversation about this. If you violate this again, it's not going to be a conversation about please don't do that. It's going to be a conversation about we're finding something else. Okay, because these are young kids to be modeled by you with the best behavior at all times, especially when an ump makes that call or an opposing coach is going crazy or an opponent does something wrong. Okay. Dealing with umps, we can have up to 10 games in a day. That means we are at times trying to find 20 umps for a single night for those games to function. You talk to high school AD, it's hard enough to find 2 umps for one night of one baseball game. So please have some grace when you show up and you see 1 ump there. Please know that there are a lot of things that probably happen to create that. We have a lot of cool, awesome processes in place that Brandon and the league board have put into place to avoid that. But just please have some grace and understanding that it is not an easy puzzle to put together to get 2 umps at every game when we have 10 games a night. That is very difficult. So please show some grace when that happens. Communicate issues you have to Brandon and the team. Make sure he knows what's going on. But just please show a little bit of grace. But we do intend, our goal is always to ump. We go through training and girls, so please know that we do everything we can to train them well. And also just please understand it's not going to be a great umpiring. It's just not going to be great umpiring. That has nothing to do with accomplishing what you're trying to accomplish with your team, which is the 3 primary goals we wrote on top. Right? So whether they call a ball a strike or out or safe does not affect what you're trying to accomplish. We've already highlighted the fact that winning should not be your ultimate goal. It should be improvement as best you can, and wins and losses will take care of itself down the road. Okay? I promise you, these kids will not remember what their record was in 4th grade. Okay? So you emphasizing that too much isn't what we're trying to focus on. And would love ZLL coaches to have the reputation of going up to every umpire after a game, handshake, look them in the eye, and say, thanks for doing that. because we all know that as soon as they get yelled at, they are quitting the next day. Please know that. It's not only a bad thing to yell at them, they also quit. And then we have less umpires. So please keep that in mind. I mean, just imagine being 15 and getting yelled at by an adult when you also don't know what you're doing. Like, that's hard, right? So please keep that perspective as best you can. As Brandon said, we're really excited about this season. We have some great numbers all the way from 4-year-olds all the way up. It wouldn't be possible without people like you doing this. We're very appreciative. Thanks for coaching, and one more time, congrats to Kelly. Thanks, Kelly.
Right. Oh, one thing I'll add to that though, if you see me show up to the field in the umpire gear, you know it's going to be a fun day for you guys. Let's be there. So I also want to point out quick before I get into some other introductions, our varsity coaches. So if you're not aware, Zeeland Little League is part of Zeeland Recreation. Obviously, that's where you had to enroll your kids and get everything signed up. So with that connection as well, we're also part of Zeeland Public Schools. And that gives us the resources of the varsity coaches to help us with this stuff. So these are their names. None of them could be there tonight. But they are guys that I'm talking to about all the stuff we're doing, running it by them. Hey, what are you guys teaching over there? To make sure that it's kind of universal here on we're doing stuff at a young age that they're also going to kind of continue to build to prepare them for high school. Because I hope every single kid that does this has a chance to play for their high school team. So we want to build that with that connection and use these guys as resources. So there's also times, especially on the softball end, where we can actually just take our teams and practice with these coaches and their teams, which is pretty neat. So if you see one of these names out there attached to an email, just understand why and who the people are involved. The other introductions I want to make are our board members. We got a few here tonight. We got Justin in the back there. Of course, Kelly, who, Brett just stole the thunder on her retirement. So that also means please know, everybody has to be on their best behavior so she can just ride into the sunset here, right? June 30 and she's done, and then you guys can start fighting and I'll have to handle it. We have Aaron here, and I want to specifically point out Aaron, who helps us with our safety stuff. Because in the next couple of slides here, we're going to talk about an additional background check you're going to get, and that's going to come from her. And you're going to see that says Aaron on it, Kelly Cook, and then you're going to say, Brandon, is this real? Is this spam? It's in all caps. It looks like phishing. I don't want to give my social security number, all that stuff. Please know when you see that email from her, please do it. If you're uncomfortable about what it's asking for, we can talk about it. I can tell you it's the most secure thing you can possibly do. Nobody's going to steal your information from it, but Little League requires it. So we have to do it. We have to filter everybody through this background check. Little League double checks that. And unfortunately, we have to do it as well as our other stuff that we'll talk about. But yeah, I don't. Nope. Yep. No. Yep, for sure. Yeah, rather than having everybody write down their social on paper and that floating around. So everything is done electronically, and like she said, we don't have access. And one more, I've got Matt Hughes here. He's been involved with Little League well before I have. Great resource, been around this thing for a long time. Helps me with a lot of the baseball stuff. So another one to see. Tons of other board members out there. We have a link on our website to show you that. They're instructed when they're around to try to introduce themselves to coaches too. That way they know, oh, hey, there's somebody here, especially if something comes up and you're looking for somebody in charge. I know everybody's default is to call me, but if you got somebody there on the site, they could probably solve it quicker than me. I'm probably on a field somewhere else anyway. I may not be able to answer my phone. All right, your approach. Brett obviously just talked about that here for a while. I just want to touch on that briefly. I've got a little quote up here from Darren Fenster. It's a guy goes by Coach Your Kids. I follow a lot of the stuff he does. Great youth sports coach, specifically in baseball and softball. But I think this is a huge guideline to go by of not worrying about your wins and losses, seeing how many kids sign up the next year. And it's funny, I coached T-ball last year with Jared here, and first thing I did when all the Little League registrations came in is I went and looked for those 12 kids that were on my T-ball team and said, I hope I see every single one of those kids signed up to play coach pitch this year. And you better believe they all did. I'm not saying that's because of us, but I was so happy to see that there were kids that started off, and he could tell you, I don't know if baseball was their thing, but boy, they had a fun year, and we had a fun year. And that's what it's all about. Another story I'll share quick. When I was 14, I was ready to quit baseball. We talk about baseball fatigue. Man, I was 10, 11, 12. I was playing 100 games a year. Grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. It's year round. I was tired of it. I played on a team when I was 13, didn't like it that much. was ready to quit. And then a guy by the name of Ken Wetkoff, who lived in Tampa, Florida, asked me to play with his team. And I live in Jacksonville. So that would be like if you wanted to play on a team and have to go to Chicago every day to play. That would be just about the same distance. But he believed in me. And he put the passion back into me to love the game again, to have fun. It's not all about making sure you win the state championship, win the national championship. I got the rings and the trophies and all that stuff. But that's the guy I'll never forget. And he was the one who kind of revitalized it in me, made me more passionate about it, got me to work out again, and turned my career around. And then I got to play high school, play college, play professional baseball, which all that I really think was because of him. So you never know when you're out there dealing with kids, right? It's so easy to just go through the motions. You never know what impact you're going to have on a kid. So just please keep that in mind. You don't know what other kids' home lives are like, things like that. You may be so much more than a coach to somebody and not know it, and not even hear the results of it after the fact. But just understand that's something that you can carry with you when you're out on these fields. Yeah.
I would say freshman class incoming, will be so much together. 21 total kids. That's a shocking.
Slow.
Shocking number.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'll answer softball. There is only West that has 80 teams. He hasn't had enough players in the last 2 years to field the team, and nor has a lot of the leagues around.
Yeah, East isn't feeling football.
Yep. So I mean, we look great. I got over 100 7-year-olds. So I'm like, yeah, but yeah, hearing that stuff is like, man, we need to work that up. And hopefully we're doing the right thing here at this level to feed that growth going up. So a couple of things to touch on quick. I know I brought this up a couple of times, but just reminders here. You need to complete your ZPS background check, do that concussion training. And that concussion training, it's rough in the sense of trying to get into the website. You're 99% of the way, right? You get on that website, it constantly crashes. I can tell you it's a state-run website. I have no control on when it's running and how it runs. I sit there myself and refresh it when I'm at my computer on my desk, like, please be on, please work, please work. Bunch of people are trying to do it at once. All I can tell you is just keep trying. Okay, I understand that you're trying. Please try, and once you get it, finish it, although before it reboots again or whatever it's going to do. And then make sure you get that certificate and email it to Kelly or I so that we can file that away. So you do the DPS background check, concussion training, and then that JDP background check. And like we said, that'll come in an email from Aaron here, probably in the next week or two. But please, once you get that, do that immediately so that we can start checking that off the list as well. And there's instructions, and I'll email them out again, the instructions on how to do those things if you haven't done them yet. And then in about a week or two, I'll go through those and remind people that we see haven't done those yet to say, hey, make sure you get on this. All right, so hard to believe. First thing coming up this Saturday is, you're not allowed to say Showcase Day. It's team formation practice. We are lining it up. I know everybody still says Showcase Day, and I say it too. We're lining it up. The reason for that is, right, there's tons of sports running through ZLL Rec. They do the same concept in their other sports, and it's easier to unify this name for the parent that's got a soccer player, a basketball player, a baseball player, yada, yada, yada. That way they know what it is. Not like, oh, baseball does Showcase Day, but you do what? Makes it easier for the parents. Totally on board with that. So team formation practice. What we're asking coaches to do is come at your kid's time. That's kind of what we are asking for at minimum. But it's highly suggested that you stick around for one other time, primarily to look at another age group that you're probably going to be coaching. So like minor softball coaches, most of your team's going to be 8 and 9. So if you got a 9-year-old, look at an 8. If you got an 8-year-old, look at a 9. If you're a 10-year-old down there, you might want to watch both or maybe just the 9s. You can pick, but come with your age. Same, like majors baseball, look at the 12s and 11s. AAA baseball, you don't need to look at the 12s. None of them are going to be on your team. Look at the 11s and 10s. Okay, and I'll explain that again in an email on suggestions of where to come. But please just know we really want to see you at least with your age group. The schedule, like I said, everything on that's coming out in an email. And what we do is, just to give you a heads up of what this looks like. What we're going to hand you when you're there is an evaluation sheet that looks like this. Okay, you are free to bring whatever other paperwork you want. I know I got Travis back there. He comes with like a big old briefcase and like computers. He's got like a whole workstation set up. It's wild. He's got highlighters. It's crazy, but it's awesome. I mean, he's got the thing broken down. Okay, this is all I'm going to give you, but by all means, like if there's other stuff you want to write down, I had to call him out on that because it's awesome. Bring whatever else you want, but this is what you're going to get from us. Okay, and what we do is we put the kids in jerseys. Everybody that's been there before, it's the same drill. Put them in jerseys. They got a big number on. Okay, what's going to be on your sheet is going to coordinate with those numbers. And then that number, that draft number on the side is what we use when we get to the draft. We'll touch on that in a bit. So there's places there to write down, a hitting score, fielding score, throwing, pitching, any other notes you want to take. And all that is going to be something you can take home with you, by all means. What we're going to have you do is on that right-hand side, cut that off. And you see at the top where it says 1 to 10. What you're going to do is cut off that right side of this paper. You're going to give the kid an overall score between 1 and 10. And then turn that into us. So yes, no decimal points, please, whole numbers. Okay, Matt has to type these in. And if you start using like 5 or 6 numbers, he's going to round very quickly. Yes, if you're nitpicking that much, trust me, it ain't gonna make that much of a difference. So we put all those in a spreadsheet. It gives the kid an average score, and that gives us an idea of what their skill level should be based on your evaluations. Okay. Yep. So at the high and the low, then take the average of the rest. So again, the more people that evaluate them, the better that score is going to be accurate. Only 3 coaches watch them. I don't know. You guys are going to see 3 different things depending on who those coaches are. But if we got 20 coaches watching a kid, that average is really going to lean out to where that kid really represents. Okay. So again, to touch on what Brett mentioned, the big goal here is unbiased ratings. Okay, we've seen things in the past where, oh, I know that's a coach's kid. I'm going to rate him high, so his team starts high and he can't draft good kids. Don't do that stuff. I mean, that's just so absolutely ridiculous. Okay, give the kids a score you think makes sense. And if it's a kid that that's played before and he's having a rough day, but he's better, give him the number that you think he is. And that way we can really do a good job of making these teams even. Okay, it's not going to give you any sort of advantage, I promise. What I like to tell coaches when you're at this day, find a couple kids, right? You're not trying to put together the next undefeated team. Find the kids that you see a kid field a ground ball and be like, I bet I could fix that kid. I could work with that kid and get him fielding better. I want to draft that kid because I can make him better. That should be your approach to this, not who are the best 12. I got to make sure I get those ones. Okay, find some kids that are near the bottom of that age group because they're going to be drafted anyway. Figure out that you want them on your team. Highlight them. Do whatever you got to do. Pick those kids. Okay. Yep. Yep. For sure. Oh, yeah.
It's the big event. Yeah. If you have, that makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. For sure. Yes, what will also factor into all the ratings is those that coached last year were asked to give a rating on their kid. And also when you did enrollment, you probably saw a rate your kid 1 to 5. All of those will also play a factor into that final rating, especially for kids that don't make the Saturday, which I've already got a ton of emails of kids that can't. We will use last year's rating, what their parents said, what their last year rating was at this thing. At that time, I guess I can call it Showcase Day. That's what we'll use to give everybody scores. And if we literally have no data on the kid whatsoever, they'll just get an average. And all that will be explained to you of how we got numbers for certain kids that maybe you didn't get to see. But it's few and far between. We usually get about 80, 90% of the kids in each age group to get there. So we usually get a pretty good evaluation on them there. But yep.
Well, you'll see both of those as you're drafting teams. So what did the coach rate in last year, and what is the skill rating or the team formation practice? The goal is to try to give you an accurate feel of skill that it is and the team are actually.
All right, so this is the breakdown, and again, I'll send this out in an email of just when our drafts are scheduled. We're going to continue to do those on Zoom. We've done that the last couple of years, and that's actually a little easier for all of us to do that on Zoom rather than all meeting in the library and trying to do it that way. That's worked well over the last couple of years. So if you want to jot these dates down, especially if you know what division you're going to be in already. But again, I'll also email these out, and of course you'll get a calendar invite with the Zoom link and all that stuff. But if we've run the situation before, if none of the coaches on a team can make it this night, then Matt, myself, John McGeehan, we love drafting for people. So we will draft for you. No problem. So otherwise, though, if you know who you're coaching with, or you're going to meet that person tonight or meet them Saturday or whatever it is, we suggest trying to, meet up together, go to somebody's house, do this together. That way you guys can pick together from one place. Otherwise, you can also, call each other and talk on the phone while also kind of doing the Zoom. That gets a little harder, but it's gone through the last couple of years. So we're going to continue to do that. Yep. All right. So when we do the drafts, like we said, players will get a rating, and that's how we build the teams. Teams are given a cap. So let's say like you're going to draft 12 kids and your cap is a 40. Then you need to make sure as you pick those kids, we're going to keep you right around that 40 number overall when we add all those scores up together. There also might be a situation where you're not going to be able to pick the best available kid out there. Okay, that's probably because as coaches, you may be starting off with 2 of the better kids rated, and there's 2 other coaches that aren't in that situation. So the whole purpose of this thing is to balance out the teams as best we can. And there's a reward for those of you that have done this before for getting the closest to that cap number without going over. There's a little reward at the end. We had one on the dot last year. Yeah, we had one on the dot last year, which is cool. We also make sure that if there's siblings that will be in the same division, they will get picked together, and we'll explain that before we get into the draft to let you know, like, hey, there's siblings here. If you pick one, the other one's going to slide into your team at whatever round. We'll walk through that before the draft. As well as teams that start off with more than 2 players. Got a few teams with 3 coaches. I know I have one team that's going to start off with 5 players because 2 of the coaches have brothers in the league. So half their team's already put together. So there's gonna be a lot of rounds they're getting skipped. So as we get into the draft time, we won't know that exactly until we see the numbers. We will explain, what rounds people are getting skipped and all that kind of stuff. But again, it's a pretty smooth, easy process. And again, I got it bolded there. Pick players that you want to coach for reasons beyond the score. Like we said, maybe it's the parents, maybe it's your son or daughter's friend at school. Maybe it's a kid you saw that talked to you and you really want him on your team because you had him last year. Whatever it may be. It's not about trying to build the next undefeated team. All right, so once we get the drafts done, teams are ready. So I will put all of those into the website, and that website will be the main hub of where you can see your roster. Next thing that you guys will want to do is email your team, introduce yourselves. So I will send out a little template email that you can use if you're not really the big email writer and you just fill in the blanks with your information. But it's good to make sure that you reach out to your parents, make sure that they got your email. You want to make sure you tell them the best way to get a hold of you, give them your email, give them your phone number, tell them if you like text, emails, phone calls, whatever. Ask them to tell you what days they already know they're going to miss for whatever vacations they're going to do. And then I know a lot of people like to set up a snack, drink kind of schedule and stuff like that. It's a good time to do that kind of thing too, if that's what you want to do. I will tell you that things are looking great to have concessions at COT this year again. So that's cool. So if you're someone playing in majors or AAA or AA baseball, we will have concessions. So you don't want to worry about a snack person. That's too bad it doesn't go to us. We don't get it. What I was going to do, but I'm going to save this to the end if I've got time, was demo some stuff on the website. And if we're kind of running late, I can skip this. You coached before, you know the drill with this stuff. We've got walkthroughs on how to do some of these things too, but understand that on the website, you're going to be able to see your schedule. Like I said, your roster. That's where you can send team emails directly from, or if you're someone who likes to just put all their emails in your own, Gmail or Outlook or whatever you got, you can do that as well. It's where you can track pitch counts, which is pretty cool, as well as a bunch of resources for you. All right, so equipment. Back in the day, we would actually give equipment at this meeting, but we're changing things up a little bit. The way we're going to do equipment is every team will get a bag, and in that bag will be catcher's gear and batting helmets. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do at your first practice is see who are my catchers, what kind of gear is in a bag, and the bags will just be in the sheds at your field. So first practice, go in the shed, grab a bag, whatever one, don't matter. Grab a bag, see if it fits your kids. If it doesn't, let me know what you need. Hey, I need bigger shin guards. These are small. I need a smaller chest protector, whatever it is. I got a left-handed catcher. I got about 6 left-handed catcher's mitts. We usually just keep them on the side until somebody's got one and needs it. So let me know what you need after that, and we will go from there. What we're not going to do this year is give every team their own bucket of practice balls. Because I would go out and watch practices, and you guys got like 24 balls, and you're trying to run a 12-kid practice with 24 balls, and you spend more time picking up balls than practicing. So my thought is I'm going to put a whole bunch of buckets in the sheds that are full of baseballs. And when you show up to the field, grab a couple. My fear of that, of course, is I'm gonna lose a lot of baseballs. So please try to make sure those balls get back in the buckets and back in the sheds, because you guys, it's a communal thing. You guys are all sharing. I got some spares, you know, I'll try to keep the buckets full through the year, but I think that'll help you guys to go to run your practice with 2 full buckets, right? Take one in the cage, one on the field. You're not spending your whole time picking them up. And that way you have that stuff. So please take those buckets out, use them, try to get all the balls back in them, and then put them back in the shed when you're done, because another team's going to use them. Shed combos will be 2-8-2-8 again this year. Again, I know you guys, I'm telling you that now, and on March 28th, you guys are going to email me, say, what's the shed combo? So that's fine. We'll email you guys again before. Otherwise, the sheds have game balls, bats. Every shed will have the USA style bats for you guys to use. Actually, I just put in a big order for a whole bunch more of those. Tees, I got a whole bunch more tees coming, screens, those kind of things. And then during games, we want the umpires to bring out the game balls. Obviously, if you're in a situation where you don't have an umpire, then game balls will be in the shed. But we want to get the umpires used to bringing the game balls to the field, and then after the game, getting them back and putting them back where they belong. And that's the way we'll continue to roll. That's how we did last year. We want to stick with that. Uniforms. Boy, I don't know how many of you guys in all your jobs and stuff and all the supply chain issues, but uniforms are right in that same category. Let me tell you, we will not be representing as many Major League Baseball teams this year because getting an MLB replica hat has been a disaster. So things right now, even though we don't have anything in hand, dates have been promised, and we should be getting stuff early April. And I'm just crossing my fingers that we're not going to roll out there the first week and not have hats or not have shirts. We're not there yet, but just want to let everybody know, please don't email me about when is my uniform coming, when is my uniform coming. Trust me, we're working on it. We will send you an email when ready. We usually pick those up over at ZLL Rec. The question usually comes up of, how do I know which jersey goes to which kid? Again, you go to that website, you look at your roster, every kid on your roster is going to have a number. And that number was for that kid because that corresponds to the shirt size they ordered. Okay, we don't just order a bunch of random adult smalls and youth larges. Like what they ordered is what that number is on that team. That's exactly what that kid ordered. So go with that. If 2 kids have the same size and they want to switch numbers, let me know so it shows right on the website. But otherwise, try to give the kids the numbers that are there. It also helps us too, because when we come out and we're watching kids, we don't know all the kids' names, and it helps to know, oh, what's the number, and I can correspond that to a name. I don't want to confuse 2 kids, thinking I'm watching one kid and it's not him. The other question that usually comes up is, can we put the names on the shirts? Yes, you can. I cannot. We don't have it in our budget to do that. That would cost us, we got 890 kids right now, getting close to 900. $5 a shirt, that's, I don't have $4,500 to spend on that. A lot of companies out there will do this, again, hoping that we get the jerseys in time to where you can get them somebody that can embroider them if that's what you want. There's tons of companies out there that do it. Examples, Sunscreens, Graphics over in Holland, a couple others, just Google it. Just make sure that they can meet the timeline you need between when you pick up that jersey and your first game. Because I don't want you to show up to your first game like, sorry, we don't have our jerseys because they're over at Sunscreens getting embroidered. The other thing you can do, please do this gently if you're going to do it. You can request, ask your parents, hey, can everybody chip in $5 to do that? Don't put pressure on them, please. That's why we also don't charge everybody an extra $5 to get names on the jerseys. Okay, if you're going to approach this and do this, understand that you are also willing to just pay the whole thing out of your own pocket. Okay, please don't put pressure on parents like, hey, where's my $5 for your kid's name on the jersey? Okay. All right, safety. We have a bunch of information on the website under the safety tab on what to do in case of emergency. Really, the takeaway here is if there's an incident at your game or your practice, somebody gets hurt, please call me and tell me what happened. And then from there, I will give direction or I will follow up later with direction on what to do. Of course, if there's a big emergency, you want to call 911, get the kid in an ambulance, get him to a hospital. And then we have an incident report form template is on the website that we'll ask you to fill out after the fact. Okay, otherwise all of our safety resources are under the website. Yes. That's right, I skipped over the capitalized thing. We do have first aid kits and all the sheds and all the places at COT. They're in where we have concessions. They're in the yacht boxes in the dugouts. Those do have those breakaway ice packs in them. Please use those. Do not ask for ice. Even though we do have a big turnover in staff, so I don't know if they'll be more they might be more receptive to it. I don't know. You can try. Let us know how it goes. Yeah. All right, practices. Brett touched on that, right? Number of touch points we want, number of practices you have going in. We have the schedule with built-in practices. What I noticed when I first started was there'd be some teams that are practicing every week and some teams that never practice all year. Okay, we create the schedule and bake in practices for you. So you're going to start March 28th. You're going to get 7 total practices before your game starts. And yes, we understand that one of those weeks is going to be spring break. Okay, if all the coaches are gone, just say, hey guys, we're not going to practice over spring break. You got scheduled practices, we'll just cancel. Not a big deal. But if you are going to be around, ask your team, hey, is anybody going to be around spring break? We've got field time. And even if it's 6 kids, go out there and take some BP, throw a little bit, throw some bullpens, do some ground balls. I mean, utilize your time if you can. Okay, if all of your team is gone, whatever, not a big deal. That's kind of the optional thing, but we want to give you time to do it if they're around. Okay. Practice blocks are scheduled for 90 minutes. And then the one unique thing that we did a little bit last year that we're trying to continue to go with, especially to give people more field time at their actual field, is at Cott and Huizinga. So sometimes if you're the one that's going to play at Cott or Huizinga, you will see that you have a practice scheduled at the same time as another team. And one team is home and one team is away, even though it's a practice. And the idea of that is the home team, first half of the practice, you got the field for 45 minutes, visitor has the cage, and then halfway through you switch. And you are also more than capable of talking to each other and saying, hey, do you want to go like 30-30 and then scrimmage for 30? Do you want to turn a whole practice into a scrimmage? Do you want to switch it? Do what you want to do. But the general guideline on the front end is that, okay? And so when you look at your schedule, this will be kind of what it looks like. My team is the Sharks, and I have a practice on Wednesday. And under details, it shows the team name. That means I'm the home team. That means my practice right there, I'm starting on the field. And I'll probably give my team a little email. Hey guys, practice is at 6 o'clock at Macatawa Bank. We're going to start on the field. And then say, oh yeah, on Thursday, we also have practice at 6. We're going to start in the cages. Right? And Cotton Huizinga have the cages, and that's where you'll go. Make sense? All right, if you want to add additional practices, we can do that, okay? You can do that through the website. You just go to add a practice. It's very easy. The issue we have is we cannot filter, like make sure a majors baseball team only practices at Cott. So when you do this, please stick to your field that you play at, okay? Please don't, baseball guys, start taking over Huizinga. It's not okay. And if I see that, I'm going to just cancel. If when you want to practice, there are no fields available where you normally play, just let me know. And we usually have some other empty fields that I can get you at. Okay. But like Brett said too, we can't have people doing the practices at their church or at another field. The main risk of that is we don't have insurance there. You guys would be 100% liable if a kid got hurt. We wouldn't be able to cover that. Little League insurance won't cover that kind of thing. And we're technically, according to our charter, not allowed to have that. I will tell you that Sports Quest is a field that we put in there as one of our fields. So for those of you that like to practice at Sports Quest and work that and have the memberships there and want to use that, that's good to go. Sports Quest is good to go. And also Saturdays. Saturdays are almost always open. We don't schedule a lot of Saturday games for your guys' levels. There's a couple, but majors teams don't have Saturday stuff. So if you're looking to get a little extra work in, you had 2 games, it's been a little while since you practiced, you want to do a Saturday thing, just let me know. You can book it yourself or let me know and I'll schedule it for you. Not a big deal. All right, practice plans. Big thing we want to go into practices is having a plan of what you're going to do. Okay. Big keys, more reps, right? Break into groups, kind of simple things, right? We don't want to have a lot of kids standing around. We have a ton of resources on the website on how to build practices, good drill examples. And what we've been planning here and really hoping we can get this to all get ironed out is to do a coaches training on March 22nd. For those of you that went to the one we did it in 2020 in February, was the only thing we really got in before everything got canceled, was we did one of these and I thought that went pretty well. So I don't know how many of you guys were able to attend that a couple of years ago, but we want to do something similar to that. We'll have high school guys out there doing the drills, kind of showing you guys the kind of stuff that you could take and put right into your own practices, especially if you're someone like, I don't really know what all we're going to do. I just want to hit some ground balls, whatever. Try to teach a little bit and give you guys some tips on what to do there. Otherwise, I also send weekly emails with a full-fledged practice plan. Here's what you guys could do this week and break it out just like that. So even if you're going in the week and like, I don't know what I'm gonna do at practice, just take my email and implement it and go and have fun with it, okay? Game planning. So just like practice planning, you wanna go into your game with a little bit of a plan. Plan out your lineups, plan out your positions before going into a game. Don't try to do it on the fly. It's not fun. Where you're in the third inning and you're like, all right, who do I want to pitch and who hasn't played the outfield yet and all that. Trust me, if you get it all laid out beforehand, it's going to be worlds of difference. We want to work on balanced playing time. I'll talk about that in a bit. And then the one thing I see a little bit that I want to touch on for the baseball guys here, pitchers should not be hitting their max pitch counts. The pitch counts are on those sheets that you guys got. Pitchers should not be hitting those max pitch counts in the first couple of weeks. Okay, there's no way that a 12-year-old should be going out there their first week, snow just melted, and they're throwing 85 pitches. I get that that's allowed, but please be reasonable and start your team out with some balance on going 2 or 3 innings with your better pitchers and then getting them out of there and build up to that. When you guys get to those tournaments and stuff, you know what, when you're playing that, go for it. Use the pitch count when the kid's ready for it. But there's no reason kids should be going out there blowing it out in the first week of April, okay? So those coaches resources I talked about, this is what the link looks like. It's on the coaches resources tab on our website. All those links will bring you right to some good stuff. If you're interested to read any of those things. We even got the video of the coaches training we did in 2020. If that's something you wanted to look at for some cool drills, full coaches guide, drills, plans, all those kind of things, all right there for you. This is an example. This is the lineup cards that I use. Again, those are able to be printed. Gives me my 1 through 13. Kids love it when there's a big dugout chart, you know, printed right on the dugout. I love seeing things like this right inside the dugout when I go check out games. Got all the kids' names on it. They love that kind of stuff. Then usually what I'll do is after the game, I pick a player of the game and I give them the dugout chart that day. That's kind of just my little thing I usually do for when I high school, college guys. Those guys liked it. So I'm sure 8 to 12-year-olds would like that as well. As far as like planning what my defense is going to be, this is the chart I use, and I've got this on the website as well. So I could plan out, I have that same lineup up there, and I'm also going to put in all my positionings for every inning of the game. And obviously something could happen. You might have to adjust, skip an inning, whatever, you know, adjust on the fly. But if you got this laid out, you're ready to go. Right, this is the one that I had. This is T-ball last year for, again, me and Jared's team. This is an example of us just listening out. Here's where the kids are going to play. We even color-coded it for them. To know what groups are going to kind of be in the same rotation thing. But it's got all the positions on it. All the kids are broken out. We know what we're doing well before getting into that game. Okay, these are easy to put together. It takes 5 minutes, and it's going to save you a lot of time than trying to do it on the fly in the middle of the game. Playing time. So first thing, kids should not sit on the bench 2 innings in a row. Okay, when you're doing that planning, make sure a kid doesn't have bench next to his name for back-to-back innings. Okay, your best kid should spend a little bit of time on the bench. Absolutely. That's what Little League is part of. Okay? Your best kid isn't always going to play shortstop, get leadoff, and be out there every time. You're going to sit the bench a little bit, and that's okay. Move kids around positions. You know, when we talk about equal playing time, I kind of consider infield and outfield, right? That's what you want to do. Not every kid has to have the same amount of innings at shortstop, but if kids get an equal amount of time in the infield and outfield, that's the kind of balance we want to see. Mix up the lineup as well. Don't have the same 1 through 12 every time. Don't have your own kid batting leadoff every time. It's fun to mix it up. Mix that lineup a little bit. Don't make it to where like, oh, my best power hitter's got to hit cleanup, right? My speedster is going to hit first and my bunter. I know that's what we want to get into. Trust me, I 100% get that. That's what I would do as well as a high school coach. For this, give the kids a little bit. Okay, give the kids a little bit. So give somebody else a shot to hit leadoff. You'll make that kid's day. Trust me. Okay. Give the kids that want to pitch the chance to pitch. When we talk about equal playing time, that doesn't mean every pitcher on your team needs to throw the same amount of innings. Okay, I'm very well aware that your better pitcher could mow through 4 innings, where in the same amount of pitches as your least good pitcher could throw the same amount of pitches and not get through 1 inning. Okay, those are not going to balance out. I get that, but please give kids opportunities, and don't just pull them once you walk. Okay, give them an opportunity a little bit. That's why we have the run limits at some of the lower levels. Give them the chance, and give them another chance, and give them another chance. Okay, please give these kids a chance. Field management. This will be another one that we'll remind everybody again, especially as we get out on the fields. Sheds have a bunch of gear, as well as the dugout containers over at Cotton Huizinga. Home team does the scoreboard. Scoreboards will be out there, controllers and stuff. Plug those in, find a parent that wants to do the scoreboard. Please make sure, though, you put that away after the game, especially when we got those rainstorms coming in at night. I hate it when there's a rainstorm and then all of a sudden the township is calling me saying, you guys left the scoreboard controller out. That's gonna be $1,000. It's not a fun conversation. We are gonna try to fire up the anthem again now that we have the concessions running and they usually control it. So we will try to do a national anthem before the game at Cott for sure. Huizinga, we have the ability to do it, but I want to talk with the softball coaches about you guys kind of taking the lead on going in there and doing it. It's just pushing a button. But if we want to run the national anthem over at Huizinga, I think it would be cool for the girls. Go out there, stand out there. Got the speaker system to do it. And I'll also open up that door so you guys can plug in your phone and play some music at practices if you want. We got a whole sound system out there. Use it. Make sure we tarp up the mound and plate when we're done. We do have 2 tarps out there now. As weird as this sounds, no raking at Cott. If you touch a rake, I'm going to get a call. So please, no raking at Cott. And we're just going to leave it at that. Oh my word! If you see something, I'm like, why do you guys even have rakes out there? That's don't put any if it's wet, please don't put anything on like the dry whatever it is. Yeah. Oh boy. Whew, man, I got some angry calls about those things. Conversation for another day, but just field maintenance wise, you ain't got to do anything over at Cott. For those of you that play at Roosevelt or New Groningen, you guys can do what you want out there with raking, filling in whatever you want. That's fine. There are a couple of rakes in the sheds out there if you need to fix something up. But Cott is a no touchy for some reason. And then, yeah, if there's any issues, if you got scoreboard lights out, scoreboard's not working, whatever it may be, please let me know so we can get that fixed. Because last time we had a light out, I called my own electrician and I got screamed at. That was fun. Subs. So if you're in a situation where you know you're going into a game and you do not have 9 players, you can get a sub. We'll have that list on the website. What you'll do is you'll start at your own division and try to find a kid at the top of the list. Give that parent a call, see if he wants to come play for you. Okay, what we're not going to do is filter through the list, find the name that you know is the best player, and keep calling that kid. Okay, I want to continue to give this sub thing to you guys to run, frankly, because we all don't have time to go find subs for everybody all the time, and it's easier if the coaches do it themselves. But we just want to make sure we're following that policy, not just trying to find the next best kid that can come out there. Okay, so you're doing this if you know you don't have 9. If you do end up getting 9, right now our stance is that sub cannot play. I know that's tough because you called that kid, parent drove him out there, and then you're telling me he can't play. Right now the answer is yes. I don't know if there'll be wiggle room on that, but it's something that kind of talking through, because I can understand both sides, and I hope you guys can see that too. Is you got 9 of your own, those are the kids that are there to play. And if you add another kid onto your team, he's just taking away time from somebody else. But on the flip side, you did just call that kid to come out there when he wasn't supposed to be there, and he showed up for you. So we should give him something. So those are kind of the 2 sides of that argument there. Please tell me when you use a sub so I can take that kid and move him to the bottom of the list so that somebody else gets a chance. And otherwise, like, we'll talk about more subs too. We'll email this out as we get closer, but wanted to touch on that. Fortunately, again, with rosters the way they are, everybody's going to get 11 or 12 players. A couple teams, maybe even 13. So hopefully subs are not a thing that we run into. Even last year with only 10 or 11 on team, we didn't run into subs too often until we started getting really kind of mid-June. All right, a couple more slides. Umpires. Brett touched on it, right? Big thing we want to do is have respect for our umps. Okay, they're going to be young. I've got very, very few adult umpires signed up right now. 95% of them are 16 and under. A couple 17s, a couple 18s. Honestly, the adult umpires I have are in this room. And I got one more in Mexico right now that are board members. So it's your adult umpires are our board members right now. The kids have gotten better. We do an umpire training. It was great last year. You may even see during your game somebody calling that umpire to the side and talking to that kid a little bit. We're working with them. We're trying to get them better and understand stuff. But especially early in that season, They're just as nervous as your players. They're going to make mistakes. I watched the Little League World Series. I watched college baseball, Major League Baseball, well, maybe not Major League Baseball this year, but I watched Major League Baseball. And yeah, umpiring is not good everywhere. Little League World Series, I mean, guys are calling strikes in the batter's box. And I'm laughing because it's like, and then here in Zealand Little League, you're expecting the 15-year-old to be better, but that guy who's there doing the highest level of the sport right now is worse, making calls just as bad.
I would tell you we're getting for
Yeah.
Within reasons we want to encourage.
Yep. So what I want to encourage is if there's something that happens and an umpire makes a call, by all means, you can go and say, hey, like, what'd you see there? That kind of thing. We're not yelling across the field. We're not calling them out. We're not going to do the challenging the calls kind of thing stuff. That's not what we're looking to do. If you need clarification on what the call was, because they did one of these numbers and you're not even sure who they're pointing at, just ask them, like, hey, what'd you have there? And just roll with it. Please, just roll with it. Okay, it's going to make parents and the kids are not out there to watch a 10-minute conversation between you and the umpires. They just want to play. They're going to give it the uhs and the ahs, and then 2 seconds later, they're going to forget about it. And then talk about it with the parents on the way home. Can you believe he called me out or whatever? And then we all joke about it and move on with our days. Okay, that's how that stuff goes. So please have grace with them. Give them some pointers if you see them. I know I see a lot of guys out there who you've got older kids that are umpires for us. So you guys understand both sides of it. Just again, I can't stress enough. Give these kids some grace. We've got a lot of them that came back again this year. So I think we're going to see a lot of improvement there. I'm really hoping we get some good feedback from our umpires this year. So if you run into a situation where an umpire is not there, kind of different ways this happens. One, if I see the schedule and there aren't any umpires for your game day of, you are going to get an email from me that says, hey guys, and it's going to go to your whole team, both teams that are involved in that game. Hey teams, we don't have an umpire for your game right now. One could show up at the 11th hour, but ultimately we don't have an umpire. So if any parents want to throw on the gear, or you got an assistant coach that wants to throw on the gear, by all means do it. But it's not looking like we got an umpire for it. I'm gonna let you know on the front end so you know going into the game what's going on and parents know. There's also situations where there are umpires scheduled and nobody shows up. That's a different situation. Couple things we can do. One is we started doing a thing with a pool ump where there's actually an extra guy on the schedule who will show up, even if everything is full, in case somebody doesn't show, so that guy can just mix right in and umpire. We've had to use that a couple times, and that's worked out well and filled in the gaps. Other things you can do, especially over at Cotton Heisinger, is if you look at another field and you see 2 guys out there, grab one. Because they know they get double the pay if they work a game solo, they're going to want to work that game solo. Trust me. That double pay thing has got a lot of like, wait, where's the game with no partners? I want that one. I want double pay. So they'll come, they'll switch, and they'll email me right there. Hey, I'm over there. I'm solo. I'm working this game alone. Where's my $60? So go to another field if you see 2 and grab one. Okay, and that way you at least got somebody. And that's even easier. You throw that kid behind the plate, grab a parent to do the bases if they want. Otherwise, understand if you only got one umpire behind the plate, don't expect them to make the greatest calls in the world on a steal second and trying to see that from back there. I try to do it. It ain't easy. Trying to make those calls all around the field when you're solo behind the plate. Okay. Extra coaches. I know a lot of you love to, ask parents to come out, help. Hey, can somebody come? Maybe you got a parent that's a good BP thrower or whatever. That's all fine. Just the one thing we need to do is we still need to take them through background checks. We can't have anybody on the field that has not gone through that. The last thing I want to put anybody in a position in is you're allowing a parent on the field that's not supposed to be 100 feet within a kid. We don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I'm going to be in the paper. I don't want that. So please, if you're asking your parents and some people say, hey, yeah, I can step up. I can help out. I'll be in the dugout. I can do your scorebook. I can help with your practices. Awesome. I will send everybody the link on what they need to do. Just type in their name and information, and then we'll forward them all the background check stuff to make sure they're good to go. Okay. All right. 2 more slides. Man, how am I doing? Not bad. All right. All-Stars. For anybody interested in All-Stars, I want to give the heads up that things are going to happen a little quicker this year. Usually the All-Star stuff isn't allowed to start until June 1. Now it's May 15, which is tough for leagues like us that don't start until the end of April because the kids are literally only going to have 2 weeks of games before it's All-Star tryouts, which is tough. You're not seeing the kid for 6 weeks. You're seeing him for 2. Okay. If you're a coach and you're interested in being the all-star manager this year, we're going to send that stuff out. We're going to do those applications earlier than usual. We do have the days booked. May 16 the tryout for baseball, May 17 for softball, for anybody interested in 12, 11, and 10. So you guys will all be on those emails I send to parents as well, doing that all-star commitment form thing. But the one thing I want to actually ask all of you is, when we select these all-star teams, we want to have the coaches out there part of the process. Even if you have no intention on coaching, being the manager or an assistant coach of the all-star team, I would love it, and we block out the schedule for this, if you guys come out and help us do the evaluations. It's a lot like the team formation practice, where you guys can come out, evaluate the kids, and actually be part of that selection process to make sure a kid that should be on the team makes the team. Because it kills me when I get the emails of like, how'd that kid not make it? And I'm like, I had 3 guys evaluate, and that's the way the scores came out. In the back of my mind, I'm going, but I wonder if I had 10 guys out there and really, made sure that nobody slipped through those cracks. Because it's a lot for 3, trying to see everything, right? Just like when we do the team formation practice. So those are, again, you're not going to have a practice or game that day. It's all-star tryout day. If you can come out, please come out. Even if you're not going to be a part of the coaching staff, come out, evaluate, help us put the teams together. And I can explain that more as we get closer. Mhm.
Put all that, it used to be like they were. So the more hands in that, the
Yes.
easier that is dependable. Hey, many hands went into this, and you had
Yes.
20 people helping put this together. It's not John's fault or Tim's fault.
Yes.
Tim's fault, which was what happened in the past.
Yes.
It's a rough thing. So the reason to have more hands is just for that reason. That's a big thing.
Yep. And the other thing I'll point out, I know, especially for you guys that have been around for a longer time, is there used to be this thing about like nominations, right? Like, hey, did my kid get nominated? We don't do that. If you want to try out for the all-star team, you can try out for the all-star team. There is no filter in how good, nominate, anything like that. All you need to do is fill out that form to make sure you understand what the all-star team means. And I want to make sure parents understand like all the commitments and things that go on with that. But if you want to try out, come on and try out. Yep. You can only do 5. I want to do 6. I want to do 7. I want to do my whole team. Don't worry about that. Parents will do it. Parents will come out. You don't need to nominate anybody. All I ask for you is, if you want to be the manager, we'll have a different conversation and make sure you're ready for that. But if you have no intention on coaching all-stars, please be part of that selection process. It would be a huge help. All right, last one, weather policy. Man, the only time I had to go out of town for work last year was the only time we got that week of rain. I'm sitting out in Pennsylvania working at our ethanol plant. My phone was just blowing up. Brandon, it's raining here. What do you want me to do? And I got like 17 voicemails, and I'm like, what on earth happened? So, ironing out the weather policy a little bit. The goal from us, by us I mean Zealand Recreation, is to make a weather decision by 5 p.m. And we want to do that aggressively. We want the games to happen. Okay. The final decision will come from either me, Kelly, or Brett. And that's where the email will come from. So if it looks like weather's coming, we're either going to say yes or no by 5 p.m. If you don't hear from us, everything is on. You're good to go. Please have some intelligence with this. If you get out to your field and all of a sudden you see some lightning popping right there, stop, get the kids in the dugout, right? You guys get parents to the cars, stop what you're doing, okay? At that point, we're just asking that to be a delay, okay? The only people that are gonna cancel stuff, again, will be Brett, Kelly, or I. So at that point, you're gonna wanna keep an eye on your email. You can call me, and if I answer, then maybe it's something that I had no idea was happening with weather that came in just for your field, and we can talk. If you try to call me and I don't answer, it's probably because I'm in the middle of talking with Brett or Kelly, or writing that email to let you know we're canceling, or just, hey, everybody, hold on for 10 minutes. It looks like the system will pass. Okay, what we're doing is taking that burden off of the coaches to make that call. Because I know I've seen it in the past too at COT, where 2 games are playing, but 1 game canceled, and it's the same system moving in. And I'm like, why? We should all be doing the same thing here. What's going on? Or that the worst case is that they got 4 adult coaches looking at the 15-year-old umpire going, what are we doing, ump? what you think, Blue? And then the 15-year-old's just crying of like, what do you mean? So again, that decision-making will come from Brett Kelly and I. We just ask you guys to use common sense. If you see something in your area, get out of there. And if you got to practice, you don't need me to cancel your practice. If you're delaying a practice and you're just like, guys, it ain't gonna happen today, bang it, go home, okay? But if I tell you ahead of time, hey, cancel your practice because of the weather, please oblige by that. But if I say, hey, give it a shot, but if weather comes in, you guys cancel it, use your own common sense for your practices, that's the guidance there as well. And we will create a more formal weather policy with that, and also make sure that's communicated to parents, so that in these situations, the parents aren't all chirping in your ear, wondering what decision you're gonna make, because they need to know too that they can call me, but they don't need to bother you guys with that, okay? All right, so I'm gonna pause here quick before I start getting into teams. So I got everybody's names on all these charts, which is fun. Does anybody have any questions? Because I've covered all basically the material I wanted to cover. Does anybody have any questions? Anything I did not mention?